they could be quite socially abrasive. However, it doesn't seem like it really affects their career. What is actually important to do in these social events? Is there a quality that actually matters and what doesn't matter? Because
Mm.
clearly, from what you were saying, it's like being normal is not quite what matters. So, like, what is it that matters?
I think I'll be honest.
All right, so the question we want to talk about today is for people that don't know what to do at company happy hours. Just a quick intro, like we've been in our respective industries for some time now, almost a decade, and
Yeah.
we've experienced quite a bit of success in our fields, and we've been to many social events, company gatherings. So we kind of like know what to expect and have like perspective on like what to do. Yeah, like for people that don't know what to do, like they have a company happy hour coming up, social event,
Yeah.
like how should they be like feeling about this? Especially if they're like nervous about it, like they're feeling socially anxious about going. Like how should they be thinking about this?
That's, it's funny, us two, we're what, millennials? Are we millennials? I don't know. Yeah, right. Um, we do kind of talk about it here and there. We're kind of in the middle of the like sometimes the guinea pigs of the generations because the Gen Zs they don't know shit about this, and then the one before the boomers, not the boomers, but like the Gen X or whatever before us,
Yeah.
they were very corporate savvy. I feel like we kind of got stuck in between, and then COVID hit, right, and then that really pushed a lot of people back, including some of us. I think we have some friends, I would say, some of our best friends who uh, basically were remote, and now a lot of them are being forced to return to office. And I will just say, being very political and playing both sides, some jobs you don't really need to go to the office, and for those, I feel like it feels like there's a corporate reason behind it. There's no actual productivity reason. I mean, we live in big cities. We're both from New York, and you know that unless you live in, right next to the office, it will take you time to get there. If you can save those time and put it towards work or put it towards your own life, you're gonna be more productive. Period. So it's people I see people our generation people our the future generation really struggle with this, and then the idea of these forced social events are getting in people's head. I would say
Yeah.
we don't know how to act, and I've seen so when you brought this topic up, I was like, let me do a little bit of research at least. So I Googled it at like eight. I remember I was like 8:41. I'm in my desk. I'm like, let me get in that mindset. Let me Google it. And one of the searches was like, yeah, just go to the bathroom and relieve yourself if you're really nervous. And I'm like, what are these fucking advice? Um, you could, I mean, I guess, listen, power to the player, if that helps you and you can do it, go for it, man. But I think there are better ways. I think, first of all, the social events can help you. You can use it as platforms to, broadcast your own brand. There's a lot of corporate jargon I'm gonna throw out there, but some of these things can be used to your advantage, right? And a lot of these events, you'll get to meet people that are gonna be that high up person that you may need
Yeah.
to talk to get that promotion or whatever. But in terms of your actual question of how can you make it easier, I think if you do drink, I think drinking a little, but keeping yourself, just please don't do not drink too much at corporate events. No one is your friend. Let's be honest. Um, maybe take a little bit of drink to loosen yourself and make yourself more comfortable. Other than that, just having a nice, like, look forward to it. Prepare by having talking points, like the elevator pitch that a lot of people talk about. Like have a 2 3 sentence thing about yourself. Like, oh, hey, what this is my role, this is what I do, and I love this or I don't like this thing because of blank. I think that's a pretty simple thing to at least start with, and then you can get, oh, I've been watching a lot of Severance right now, and wow, what a show! Or like, have you seen Dune 2? Like, I would like to be doing you or some. I don't know, man. You could do so much with cultural drops here and there. I think that's the I think that's probably the best approach. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of anxiety behind it. What, John? Do you have ideas on? I think there's a lot of reasons behind it. What do you think is like the
Yeah,
biggest factor behind that anxiety?
actually, yeah, I really want to. I think you brought up really good points there. One of them I want to see if we can even go deeper on is the talking points that you said and like the
Mm,
preparation going in, because sometimes I feel like people they're stressed about these events because they don't even know like how to prepare.
right.
Like for some of these people, they're entering the workforce for the first time, and all they know is at one point they're working comfortably in their cubicle, and in an hour they're about to be in a bar, which a lot of
Yeah.
them might not have even been in before, with 50 strangers that
Yeah.
they don't know, but their opinion matters for their career. So I think for them, they're going into that situation with a lot of stress. And I think
Mm,
any like preparation that they can do would help alleviate that stress a lot. And something you talked about was like, oh, maybe see if you can just, you don't have to rehearse it, I think, but just prepare some like talking points and an elevator
yeah.
pitch about yourself. Um, yeah, you gave some examples like maybe TV shows that you're watching. Do you have like any other talking points that you kind of like to
Yeah.
prepare? You know? And would this be different like depending on who you're talking to as well, like
Yeah.
peers
Great question.
versus someone superior?
Yeah, that's a very good point actually, because you kind of do need to know. You may not. You said it very perfectly, where you said like you're gonna meet like 50 people. You probably don't even like. You may have names from
Never met?
like
Yeah,
it never met, like your email, like Outlook. Like that's the way I feel sometimes. I'm like, I think that's the person from that Outlook, because and also the picture in the Outlook is like like if you see my picture in my Outlook and this, there's this without the beard. It might look a little off, and you're not sure, right? And it is a little weird. I think the first advice. I mean, we talked about the elevator pitch, but know that 99% of the people are feeling the same way. So if you do approach
that's a good
someone,
one.
like they are also probably like, oh, I'm glad that this person's approaching me and not the other way around. Even if it's like somebody that doesn't like it's not gonna really be useful to your career, like they're not in your department or they're not really higher up. Doesn't matter. At least you talked to someone, you warmed yourself up. Try to when if there's a happy hour and you walk in without any coworkers, first of all, time your arrival with the coworker or come after. I'm never the first one in my department in the happy hour. I hope my folks are not listening, but I ain't gonna be the first one in there. I'll tell you that. I'll let them go in, so when I come in, I can at least like, oh hey James, oh how you doing, brother? At least we can do that.
Dude, the
That's
first ones that show up to any company happy hour, you guys are braver than like Navy SEALs.
they are the CEOs in the making though. I'll be honest. Like they're out there like talking to everybody. My previous manager, like who's like very young, he was only like a few years older than me. He just became like manager, and he had a lot of rough. He was still like working on his craft. He would be in there like half an hour before, and as people are coming in, oh hey, I'm blank, blah blah blah. How you doing? Da, da, da. And I'm like, damn, that's gotta be like that's dedication, and that's a lot of willpower.
Facts.
But I feel like that's not the average person.
Yeah, if
So
you're like currently socially anxious, I wouldn't like jump to that immediately.
no,
But yes, if you can work towards that and you can get to that level where you're like showing up first to like happy hours and then you're like talking to raw dogging conversations with your boss,
yo,
like
that is
holding down the fort. like for an hour before
Yeah.
everyone else shows up. If you can
Yeah.
do that, like you're gonna get places.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes it, I feel like that does make it a little bit easier. Other things, honestly, what you mentioned about if someone higher up or not, even if you don't recognize people, try to kind of gauge if the person you're about to approach is, and someone down, not down below is not the right word, but someone that's not middle management or upper management. They usually have, like, they'll probably be dressed a little bit better. That corporate, what people wear is very important, and it kind of shows the hierarchy because it is okay to, in a happy hour setting, you can approach anybody, really. I think that's really the key. But do understand, if you're gonna approach someone from upper management, definitely, be professional, say where you're from, say your role, really lead with all those things. Again, be professional and be ready to, they usually, in my experience, the upper management folks will ask you more pointed questions like, oh yeah, what that role that you do, because they usually are in, like, the middle management folks are kind of the most lost that I've found. They're kind of, kind of the messenger between people who are working under versus and the upper management folks. The people in the upper management, they will be asking you questions that may put you kind of like, oh, I didn't expect that in a happy hour. So uh, be ready to answer. Don't get nervous, but just be ready to answer questions about your work and maybe what you think about certain things. You have to be a little political. You can't just be going out there and talking about, oh man, I hate the new reporting system. I don't like this time recording stuff. Take it to, that's not the place for that. So you have to be a little careful about that. Other than that, some things that help me is when I feel a little overwhelmed, take a step aside, like just go for a walk, take a lap, go out the bar, go whatever, take a lap, come back in, and boom, and then you can just resume because there's so many people there. Most likely, you won't really affect things if you do that. So if anything, they might ask you like, hey, where'd you go? And you can use that as a starting conversation point. You don't have to be like, yeah, I got nervous
I
and
just
walked
relieve
around.
myself.
I just relieved myself. Why? Oh, I had to talk to the my gardener, because blah, blah blah. I had to talk to the exterminator because the rats are in my apartment. If you live in New York, that's the easy one. There's so many things you can do. Uh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
those
I
are
think.
some
That's
good
a
takeaways.
good starting point. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move it to like, let's say they've arrived at the event.
Mm,
Is there something they should be doing when they enter? Like, let's say they go alone.
mm,
They weren't able to go with the rest of their coworkers. They're alone. Everyone's kind of like already chatting. Tables already set up. Um,
mm.
what would you do? Kind of, and they're like newer, so they're not so experienced. They don't really know as many people. Like, how would you approach that situation as someone like, who's seen more, in your career?
Oh man, you hyped me up, man. I didn't see much, but yeah, that's a really, and that's something I feel like a lot of these new gen is gonna kind of find themselves in because honestly, we don't make a lot of friends at work, right? Because I feel like the online thing and internet has helped people keep up with friends a lot more and family, so they don't seek that kind of companionship outside at work, right?
As much
So
anymore, yeah.
as much anymore. So people are going to find themselves in that exact situation. Maybe you are a new hire and you're just going in for the first time. My approach is always, if I, and this is something I haven't done this in a while because I've always known someone at this point because I've worked in my company for like a decade now. So, but before my year 1 and 2, because I wanted to go to these happy hours,
Yeah.
I did enjoy them, but it was a good way to show I exist.
Yeah.
The best thing was to do, if you, even if you don't drink, go to the bar, get like a Diet Coke, get some water, get some juice. Doesn't matter. If you drink, get a drink. It just it's usually in these happy hours things are paid for, so it's gonna be free. So just don't get drunk, but have a blast. And then from there, start from your left hand side. Just say hello to groups and see if there are groups that are adjacent to your role. So I worked in the engineering department. If I find a department that's like, first of all, if it's my department, I usually would know. But if it's someone, there are like the non-technical side to our roles. If I hear a role like that, oh, hey, yeah, I work blah blah blah. I work under this. But if you don't, at least what I would do is if I find someone and they're like doing something that is completely unrelated to me, say my thing. Oh, I really love your umbrella. I've done. I was like, sometimes you're fishing, and then you can say like, oh, just hold on a sec. I gotta run for a little bit. Thank. Great meeting you. Boom. Go to the next table, and then you don't have to like do it right away. You can just kind of go on your phone, go to the weather app, do some, take a little break, boom, go to the next one. And until you find like a little home or find like some people, maybe you can find someone closer to your age, perhaps. You don't have to talk about work. You can talk about stuff that interests you and the group. Basically, try to find a little home in that. And this is like the worst case scenario where you're coming in late, all the seats are taken, but 99% of the time, any little niche is going to invite you in. It's more about what you're going to have a choice in. Okay, I want to sit here or sit there. So you don't have to like sit at the first group that you approach,
Yeah.
perhaps, but you can kind of go around, introduce yourself, and just see where you vibe and just kind of sit down. And once you bring the plate, if there's food, if once you bring the plate to that seat, that's yours. So then you can claim that.
Nice. I really love the idea of like finding a team that's adjacent to you
Mm-hmm.
because there's like some similarity in what you guys do. So you guys kind of understand what each of you do already, and there's like a common talking point. And I think this goes back to your previous point about just being a little bit prepared. Like, don't
Mm-hmm.
rehearse anything, but just know like how do you explain what you do at the company? Because people are going to ask, and it's
Very
a good way to
important.
start off the conversation. You're talking about what you do, you ask them what they do, and then you can go on from there. And as Alien said, if the conversation doesn't really go anywhere anymore, you can always just feel free to say like, I need to go to the bathroom. So you always have an eject button. Um, awesome.
Yeah, I had
Now,
a guy, we knew a guy that was, I think, on the spectrum. God bless, and there's nothing wrong with that,
I shouldn't
obviously.
laugh.
And they just didn't even say, they would just leave. Like I'm talking about in mid-conversation, they would just, and I had so much respect for the man because he was like middle management at that time when I met him, and he would want to talk to everybody. Mid-conversation, if he feels like it's over, he'd give a little nod and boom, he's gone to the next one. I'm like, I want to be like you, man. That is because I gotta find like, oh man, oh I gotta take a call. Or I gotta, hey, let me come back to you because I feel bad. He don't give a fuck. He's like, oh yeah, my favorite
Well,
Pokemon.
he has a biological reason. You don't.
Well, we don't know. We don't know. I was just like some of the things
Oh, you guys are
like
just guessing.
I'm guessing, yeah, because there I have had interactions with him,
Yeah.
and so there was So we traveled. So we have like clients that we visit. So one time we visit a client together. Afterwards, we are just talking about it, having a debrief, and we're walking back to our cars. So walking back to our car, and I'm like telling him, like what I thought, and he just does. He's not listening to me. He's not like I know he's already like thinking about like whatever the next thing he has to do. And like as we were approaching like a median section of like, leaving off, he's like, I'm in mid conversation, by the way. He's like, yeah, I think the client feels like, and he goes, yeah, I'll see you Monday. All right, man. All right, yeah, good working with you. And he's just leaving. And I know like, it's not what bad intention. Like I've known him enough time, like he's a good man. And as I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll see you. Have a good weekend. As I'm going to my car, as I'm about to open my car, he just calls back, Abdul, what'd you think about the client? And he comes back to my car. He's like, yeah, tell me all about it. And he just basically the speech I was giving before, he was like, now I want to hear about it and you're gonna tell me about it. And I'm like, damn, all right. I mean, it
Holy
I
shit. System
yeah.
restore.
Seriously, it was like he has a reboot. I'm like, all right. But all that, just the brief moral of that story is like, you don't have to be quote unquote the normal, right? I don't want to use the word normal. I'm using quotation. You can have your own flavor. You can do your own thing. Like it's people see intention. A lot of people feel nervous. It's okay. Just do you.
That actually leads into a great point. So when people go to these events, they feel like they have to, assimilate to the company culture and like act a
Mm,
certain way. But that's a great story, and I've known people similar to that too, where they could be quite socially abrasive. However, it doesn't seem like it really affects their career. What is actually important to do in these social events? Is there a quality that actually matters and what doesn't matter? Because
mm.
clearly, from what you were saying, it's like being normal is not quite what matters. So, like, what is it that matters?
I think I'll be honest. The number one thing in these things is showing up and staying there, right? Especially at your young career. Like all these happy hours, by the way, all have after parties. Like they'll have that the company sanctioned happy hour, like 3 4 hours, and you bet your ass there's an after hour somewhere. And if you're watching or hearing this and you're like, mine doesn't. You're just not invited, brother. Trust me, there is one. It So those things, honestly, you don't have to really be someone like you don't have to be Great Gatsby. You just have to kind of show up and be present and laugh at and laugh at the stuff and be part of the festivities. I think a lot of people fail at that. A lot of people don't just show up, or they'll show up for maybe an hour or two. And by the way, if you're especially in engineering, so we're in engineering. In engineering, most of it is your product, what you craft. Like some of us, honestly, they don't really come to the happy hour. And we also are a bunch of people that are not normal by any means in terms of social behavior.
Yeah,
Like
naturally inclined to not want social activity.
absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of us, especially as you develop your career, they kind of just don't show up because they don't have to. But honestly, I do think there's a huge benefit in showing up and staying, especially staying for these things, because that's where so, I don't drink. But the people who I come to happy hour with, they do, and they get a lot more comfortable, they get a lot more looser, and you kind of start developing those friendships that way. And the longer you stay, especially where I'm fully remote, so the times we do go out and do meet up, it's very nice to connect that way. And for people who are in similar ish positions and you have happy hours that are not every week, that might be very interesting. However, I do want to say there are people who are going into the office 9 to 5, then they gotta freaking take a 2 hour train back. Totally understand those they slap a happy hour that Friday. The last thing you want to do is see your coworkers Friday night or Thursday night, right? For those, I feel like you can choose the event you can show up in, and that should be fine. You don't have to show up. Those are so it does depend a little bit in terms of like how to act and stuff. Again, I mentioned this before. Don't get too drunk because you don't know who's watching. If it's just like sort of your department and you guys are tight, that's a little different. So you can kind of judge that, but honestly, these are not your friends at the end of the day. Do know that there might be eyes watching that are not on your side. So you know, uh, don't 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 get drunk. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not. I've seen it. Not great. I've seen
It's
people get
never
talked
the
to.
right decision.
Nah, it's never. And yeah, let's just say it's not. Um, Other than that, honestly, being yourself and you know being honest, talk about your role. Don't be too political. Don't be too religious. Like these things, like don't bring that. Like be religious, be political in your life. Don't, I'm not saying don't do that at all, but be careful at work. Work politics is a big thing, and you don't know what how other people think, and unfortunately, sometimes people make decisions based on how you think. So you have to be careful. You have to kind of toe the line. I'm very much a great person when it comes to those controversial things in at work because I'm there to get paid and further my career and get paid more. That's it. And they know
Yeah.
that. I know that. And I think that's a good relationship to have. There's only like one or two people that I really am tight with that I kind of came up with that I would go further beyond. But even them, honestly, I ain't telling them my deepest, darkest secrets. So, uh, yeah, so be yourself, but protect yourself a little bit. Um, don't talk about controversial stuff. Kind of move away from that. You don't have to change subjects, but just you don't have to say anything. Like you can just say, ah, oh, damn. Those words are free.
Wow, that was really insightful. I've actually taken some stuff away for myself too, from that, because as an engineer, you're not really, you're more of the type of like, I'm gonna let my work do the talking,
Mm,
right? Like my work will speak for itself. I don't need to go to these happy hours and schmooze to my bosses. A lot of engineers feel this way. So, what you're saying about showing up is and staying, like just being present with everyone there and having FaceTime, like that in itself has so much value. That's a really good takeaway that people should really note down from this. And I loved how you said for people who can't do that, like maybe they're further along in their career and they have families, so they can't really join every happy hour. Still, when you can, it's still
hmm
super valuable to show up to the ones you can and still make that effort, especially if people know that you have a family. That just makes it even more significant. So, wow, excellent takeaway there.
Yeah, I did want to say one thing to one of your previous points.
Oh, yeah.
Um, we're mostly speaking from I think both of us have had experience with like managing people under us a little bit. I'm a full-on manager, but I had like interns and stuff under me. Happy hours are also a good way to sort of not only get close to them but also impart your wisdom on them. Like I had a really tough intern, not he's not they're not an intern but like a junior, but just stubborn as f. But happy hour kind of helped get us a little closer. I kind of understood his motivations, and that helped sort of get what I wanted out of him and helped him change. So for my middle managers and my upper managers out there, it could be a good way to connect with your underlings and kind of get what you want out of them.
Actually, that's a really good one. So, yeah, let's say a manager has like someone who works, reports to them and they're kind of like difficult. What would you do if you guys went to a company event to like kind of approach that subject and maybe try to adjust things? How would
Right.
you, what would you do there?
Well, happy hours are a good like middle ground or like a neutral ground. You can kind of come and get drinks in you and sort of talk it out a little bit. If you're someone who is the manager in the situation, you can use that to sort of see if you can get their thoughts. Like, hey, I know you're struggling with this, or I know we don't see eye to eye. Like one on one. Please don't air this out in front of the whole department like that. We've heard horror stories. Like that's not nice. Thankfully, I'm in a very non-toxic culture, thank God. But we've heard stories where it's like, yeah, man, that report you turned in, like in front of the whole, like, no, let's not do that. Like one on one, maybe at least that way, you're away from work, you're not quote unquote working hours. It might make it a little bit easier to talk about certain things. And I would say in my experience, I would say in our experience, most of the things that people struggle with when it comes to work productivity is not laziness or anything like that. It's more about something happening in personal life or just stresses and being overwhelmed, even if it is sometimes just our fault. It's almost always not just I'm not going to do something usually. So it's good to sort of talk that out and see if you can find a middle ground for the person on the other side. Like if you're being managed and you're having problems, you can use that to carefully give your own side and say, look, this is the case. Maybe I'm overworked, maybe I have too much on my plate, and maybe you prepare that, you say that, like, look, I'm doing X, Y, and Z projects and I don't have time for that. Maybe I need some help. Come up with some solutions. You can say that. Say, you can, if there's something happening in your personal life, honestly, it's not a bad idea to at least say part of it. Like, look, I am not in a good place right now. That's why I'm struggling with this. If I could get some time, blah blah blah. I don't think, use it to your advantage. Don't give everything. Don't trust them. I would always say, because they have their own objective and you should have yours too. But you can use. I think both sides can use that to their own advantage and find maybe a symbiotic relationship. Um, yeah, I think it's a good place to bring that up.
Yeah, I think you touched on this. Happy hours and social events are really great places that are like low stakes, where you can bring
Low
up
stakes.
slightly more like personal topics like, oh yeah, is there anything like affecting you that might kind of be seeping into work as well, to try to iron those issues out. And once you guys are more mentally like aligned, then maybe you guys can uh, improve your relationship from there
Hmm.
because you guys are kind of seeing eye to eye. One other question, I see this a lot being asked. When people go to these events, maybe at work or after work, and they're talking to someone, but they don't know how to continue the conversation. Let's say the conversation was like, oh, I do this. Here's my role. What's yours? Oh, I do this. And there's kind of like a lull in the conversation. How do you usually deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's no right answer to that. That's the $1 million question. Um, you know, the first thing is, don't worry. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, that kind of stuff. Like, you're not out to date this person in front of you. You're not trying to make friends with this person. They should be fully aware that this is for work. It's gonna be awkward. Like, it's like there is no pretense to meeting like this. It's so odd, right? So if that stuff like happens, honestly, let it ride. I know that sounds weird and that's gonna sound uncomfortable at first, but if there's an awkward silence in that setting, it's okay. Just let it kind of happen and see if you can naturally move to another topic, work related, maybe something else related. Hey, do you run marathons by any
Yeah,
chance? Blah
find
blah.
something to
You
ask
know,
about. Yeah,
yeah,
something else you
I
might be
don't
interested in.
I
Yeah.
don't fucking run marathons, but you can say that to see if they, or like, maybe who knows, but it's more about just, if there's an awkward silence, that's okay. If you want to continue, you can use that
Happens
awkward
to
silence
everyone.
to, yeah, happen. And they know the person in this group or person next in front of you, they know that too. They expect it. You can use that to your advantage. You can, if you want to dip from this conversation or dip from this table or whatever the setting is, you can use that. You can just say, "Hey, nice meeting you." Boom, gone. Or you can just give an excuse and just leave. You can also use that as sort of like another jumping off point. So, hey, do you live around here? Do you live in Brooklyn? Do you live in blah blah blah? And use that as sort of a jumping off point. Apparently, some people don't like that. I like knowing. Like, I'm a big I love New York. So if someone says like I live in blank, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, place, do you have a place I could, I always wanted to eat a lunch around there. um but some people are like, hey, that's a little forward for, if it's the opposite gender. I'm like,
From
okay.
experience, I think you have to frame it the right way. Like,
You
if you just
do.
ask, oh, yeah, you got a new apartment, where at? That's fine. Don't be
Yeah.
like, oh, you live in Chelsea? Do you live alone? Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah,
But if you
maybe.
frame it the right way, it's just like you want to talk about the neighborhood and like,
Hmm.
yeah, which New York neighborhood has like these nice restaurants, for example.
Oh,
Totally kosher.
I mean, one of the best. I mean, you can lie about this. Like, I'm new to this area, and can you recommend me stuff? Like easy. That's a layup. Like you don't have to worry about this at all. You can if you can hook onto one of their interests, if they like to, watching films, like, oh, what's the best film you saw this year? What's one you would recommend? I'm kind of bored. So I don't know. There's so much you can do, but that's only if you want to continue it. But of course, you can just stay with the work stuff. Like, oh yeah, have you heard about blank? Have you heard about? Are you working on this thing? And just kind of continue there. But I think the biggest advice on the lull of a conversation is just accept it. It's okay. Like if there's a little bit of awkward silence, it's only awkward because we name it that. Like if the silence is silent, who cares? You just kind of have to, um, yeah, you just have to let it ride.
Yeah, let it ride. And if something else comes up you want to ask, just ask it. And then
Yeah,
you'll go on from there.
I think that's it. I think that's the one. That's the thing that I've been searching, like the words are. So it, if you have something to ask, just ask it. If you gotta leave, just leave. It's really not that big of a deal. Um, yeah, I think even for some upper management folks, like if you're in a lull with like your boss or something, they don't care either. Like it's okay.
Awkward silence. You're fired.
If
Not gonna happen.
not gonna have usually.
Yeah, I won't say it's never gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah, you might honestly, you might want to get fired for that. You might be able to sue them for like oblivion. So I don't know.